Good morning, everybody. Let me welcome you to our next session of the MicroStation Fireside Chats. Today we have session 6, Python capabilities inside of MicroStation. And with that, I directly hand over to my colleagues Jakub and Stuart. So, Jakub, it's your show now.
Thank you, Nanette. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's LinkedIn Live session, Speed Up Your Workflows with MicroStation Automation using Python. This is a live event, so please feel free to communicate with us. You can ask questions in the comment section, and we will do our best to answer all of them. And for those who cannot attend live session, the recording will be available on demand later. My name is Jakub Grzesiak, and I'm here with our industry expert, Stuart Milne. Stuart, before we dive in, would you tell us a little bit about yourself and your area of expertise?
Hi, Jakub. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. I'm one of the product managers within the MicroStation team. There's a number of us looking after different areas. I've been at Bentley quite a long time, about 17 years, where I spent most of my time as a consultant. I'm working directly with users, but in the last 3 years, I moved to the product management team. So I'm looking after the automation side of MicroStation.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Stuart. In this session, we will explore the possibilities of improving our workflows in MicroStation using Python. And MicroStation and Python integration offers plenty of new possibilities for all of the users, and not only experienced computer scientists. And together with Stuart, we will do our best to provide you with all necessary information to start your MicroStation customization. Stuart, so I will start with the first question. Why did Bentley introduce the Python manager in MicroStation?
That's a good question. Why do we do that? So MicroStation source code, the code that MicroStation is built upon, is not publicly available to users. So therefore, users cannot access that code and change things. But what we do provide in a number of different ways is something called an API, which is an application programming interface. And that can be...
Excuse me, Stuart.
Yes.
Nanette, could you please switch our presentations now? Thank you.
Okay. So what we do provide is various APIs, an application programming interface. So some of you may be familiar with some of these concepts you can see in the green box on the left on the screen. So things like VBA or generative components, or those who are really good at scripting and been doing it a long time might be familiar with the SDK. And what that does is provides an avenue into the back end of MicroStation and allows people to develop and customize their own features in MicroStation or automate tasks and so forth. So Python's the newest one that we've added to the collection there. So I guess the next question will be why Python? If we start at the bottom here, you can see over the years, so the last 20 or so years, that Python has risen from nowhere to being the most popular scripting language in the world. And VBA, which has been a stable workhorse in MicroStation that users can interact with, has gone from being quite a popular language to falling off the list. And that sort of coincides with the way Microsoft and so forth are dealing with VBA as well. So we've introduced Python for that reason. It's a relatively easy to learn and use language. Its community is vast and huge. It's very, very mature now and quite a supportive community. So if you need to reach out to the community and ask questions, they're out there. I think the Python libraries make Python very effective. There's hundreds of thousands of libraries that you can include in your scripts, save you rewriting all that work again. It's very versatile, it's efficient, it's reliable. It's also one of the favorites with big data, machine learning, and cloud computing. Many students, it's their first choice of language they may use. And most importantly, it's open source. And we've open sourced not only some example files, but also the underlying technology of Python within MicroStation. It's available on GitHub. that's it for that question. Jakob?
Okay. And could you tell us a little bit more about advantages of using Python inside MicroStation now?
Sure. So a few values here. I won't go into depth on all of these, but what we can do, I mean, removing roadblocks. I mean, if you're working in a piece of technology and you'd like to do things that are a bit rare or you can't do, you want that capability to be able to write your own automations and your own tools to be able to do that. I think that's a good benefit there. Innovation as well. So if you're an organization that likes to innovate or sees themselves as innovators in the industry, you can tap into Python being such I guess an agnostic scripting engine which runs across many technologies and applications, and use the libraries out there to innovate your own features on top of the MicroStation platform, so to speak. So there's lots of other different benefits and value you can see here for the Python feature.
Okay, thank you again. And could you show us some examples of how scripts are working and how to use them inside MicroStation?
Sure. So we'll do a bit of a live demo here. So I'll just switch over to MicroStation here. So what we can do, we can find the Python UI under Utilities in the ribbon bar up here. So if we can open up the Python menu, so to speak, and what we get here is a dialog box which has some features, and I'll work through each one. So up the top, we have some buttons. We can create a new Python scripting file. We can open an existing one. We can add a whole folder of scripts and remove that folder or close it, run a Python script, and we can edit our Python scripting in various different IDEs or development environments that are available out there, industry standard ones such as Visual Studio Code. And we'll take a look at that in a minute. Over on the right-hand side here, we've put in a help button. So the help button has three main avenues. Firstly is the help documentation contained within MicroStation itself. So it'll give some little message and it will fire open the Python manager. This basically just gives you a quick introduction to the interface itself, what I'm going through today, and so forth, and some variables down the bottom. That's not the in-depth part of it, though. So let's have a quick look at the more in-depth part. We also have our API documentation as well. So the API documentation throws up and starts off with various guides about MicroStation Python, the versions we're using, how to record macros, and a few other tips here. But down the bottom here, we have the API references. So what this includes is API references is all the different functionalities within MicroStation. Now, with the first pass of the Python scripting engine, we had to wrap this around 8,000 or 9,000 features that are contained within MicroStation. We think we got about 80% there. Okay, so we're working on the rest of the features for the 24.1 release and 24.2. So a good way to find out the feature exists, you can run in the search engine, and it gives you all the different functions to do with lines. So it might be a B-spline, or it might be a line break or a line cap. So you can click on each one of these and see different classes and functions that you can use that help you within your scripting. Let's go back to this. And the final one takes us to the Bentley communities. So what we have is a landing page on the Bentley communities. We'll be building this up over time. It gives us a little bit of an introduction about the Python project. And we have some useful links here out to the forums where you can ask questions and pick brains of the community out there. Over time, we'll be adding some learning resources for general Python scripting. There's plenty of them out there anyway, so you can discover your own. I've got this blogs list. If I click on this one, this is probably a good little avenue to start with. We have 2 blogs within here, so we're starting from the very basic. Both follow the same kind of journey, but are slightly different. So written by some colleagues within Bentley to do that. So starting with the basics, it's a very good introduction to Python scripting. So feel free to use those. And the last one links back to our API documentation. So there's a little bit of script about what's in there and so forth. Okay, so let's go back to MicroStation itself. So for the very basics, you can, like you do with VBA, is record a macro. It works very much in a very similar vein. So for example, what I might do is start recording a macro like you would here. Let's hit record. I'll do something very, very simple, like draw a polygon like so. And go back to utilities. We can stop the macro, give it a name. I'll call it a shape or whatever this might be. Yeah. Maybe I already have one called shape. I do. And what it does, it creates the Bentley macro recorder file. So in order to save that as a Python file, we can open this up as a Bentley macro recorder file, and we have the choice. We can choose to save it as VBA or promote to VBA like we did in the past, or we can promote to Python. Okay, and then what that should do is pop it in our list here, and we can use the editor to see what it did. Okay, so very much like the VBA thing as well. So just working through how this works here. What we do provide with Python as well is, for the first pass, the first release, we had over 60 samples. So those samples go through and look at various types of functionality and how you might apply those. So for example, this is one of my little favorites here. There's one here called extract item types to Excel and then repopulate from Excel. So what you can do, you can look at this one and say, okay, well, I'm quite interested in doing that. I've got loads of objects in my model that have some item types, and what I'd like to do is spit all those to Excel and use the power of Excel to make those edits, and then push those changes back into the objects. What we've done with this example is applied it to title blocks. So if you've got, and I'll just open this up actually, and this is the inbuilt editor within MicroStation. I'll get onto the editors in a minute. What this does, it looks for an item type called title block. It pulls all that information out into Excel, and Excel called titleblocks.xls. You can make all your edits and then push that back in onto a title block. Now, if you want to do multiples, say 100 title blocks, you can run the batch processor with this particular script to do that. Okay, so you can have a look. So these are here so you can learn how to do scripting or see examples and apply those examples to another situation, or use it as the basis, save as, and start changing it around in a different way. You're free to use any of the examples however you want. Just quickly here, so macros, this will point to, similar to VBA, to the macros folder in your projects as well. So any new Python files will appear down here. So just one more thing I just want to cover on the UI as well. Let's go and have a look at that same script again, extract item types. You can choose to add your own development environment. So one of the most popular ones and famous ones is Visual Studio Code. As soon as you install that, it's free. It'll appear in your list, and you can open your scripts in Visual Studio Code. Okay, and there's some of the advantages of doing that in Visual Studio Code is all the where's that gone? There it is all the debugging features. You can also use GitHub Copilot if you'd like that to help you to script. I'll talk about how we might be able to use a bit of co-piloting in a minute, but you know, this may be the direction you want to go in terms of your developing. Just one train of thought here: the Python editor, the inbuilt one, is very minimal in its functionality, and we'll probably keep it that way. We'll see what the consensus is. But given there's so many industry standard development editors out there, do we put our effort into this, or just make a link into the popular ones and work on other things? We'll probably do the latter and work on other things. This is more just for reading and doing a few manual edits and running with inside MicroStation. For some serious scripting, I'd recommend using one of the industry standard development environments. So Jakob is probably some examples on how to use some scripts in MicroStation and a little bit of a tour around the interface there.
Perfect. Thank you again. This is really interesting. I'll just remind our audience that you can use the comment section to ask us questions, and with Stuart, we'll try to answer them at the end of the comments of the presentation. And now another question to you, Stuart. Could you give us some tips on how to make Python like really powerful tool inside MicroStation?
Sure. I might just go back to our little presentation here. We went through that one. Okay. I think Python libraries is one thing that makes Python really powerful. So what is a Python library? Excuse me. So libraries are a collection of modules and packages that are pre-written to perform certain tasks, various tasks. They help sort of simplify the coding using sort of reusable functions and classes, and are publicly available, and you can use them within any of your scripting. So I think that, the count of how many available is 300,000-400,000, something like that, out there available for you to use. And you can have a look at those at the Python package index if you were to search that in Google. So some of the famous ones are, NumPy, for numerical calculations, or pandas for data manipulation and analysis. One thing that we recently found that we had a bit of fun with was using, we found a publicly available gradient slider, and I'll just show you how that one kind of works. So let me just go and find my script for that. What I've got, so I've been playing around with a few different versions of this as well. So what we've got down here is just a whole bunch of shapes. Okay, so you see all these individual shapes that make up this kind of wall, if you like. And what this script does, if I run it, what it does is a publicly available piece of scripting that gives you a gradient slider. So what this is doing, it's changing the color of each one of these panels as you move along based on the gradient slider. So you can move this gradient slider along and so forth. You can also change the color, which is pretty cool. So you can come through and say, okay, well, I'd like a light blue there, or a transitioning to a darker blue there, potentially, transitioning to a, let's say, a yellow here. Okay, so again, not something that we wrote, something that we use from one of these Python libraries, and just to get that effect is that changing the color of each one of these shapes as we move along. And that code just looks like this. It's pulling in the library, and then working away to make that happen. And again, we'll make this I guess the theory and the theme behind what we're doing here with Python is to make it a community and share information around and so forth. So what we'll do is it'll be embedded in the next release, and if not, it'll be available. Well, if this is the next release, it'll be available on the GitHub repository, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So yeah, that probably answers that question there. Jakob, in fact, I might just quickly show you the GitHub repository, which is, when I get back to my
Stuart, are you able to answer that question that just came in?
I can't see the...
What about generative components? Will generative components work with MicroStation Python?
We haven't hooked it up yet. When it comes to visual scripting, we are thinking about other avenues at the moment and different ways that we can do it that are a little bit different to the way we've done it before and the way other visual scripters are doing things. So I can't say too much on that at the moment, but stay tuned. There's lots of thoughts going into what the next generation of that could be. But in terms of hooking generative components directly into Python or the other way around, we want to work on something a little bit bigger and better for that. Sorry, I'm just going to go to that GitHub repository. So we have a GitHub repository as well. It's under Bentley Systems MicroStation Python. The whole thing is open source here, and there is a samples folder. So all the samples that we create along the way will be updated to this particular area. Where am I seeing that? Where do you see those? You might have to ask me those questions, Nanetta, because I can't see them here.
Yes, we have another one, so maybe I can just read it quickly. Okay. Can you make a quick split for a same size shape? For example, land plots, maybe it's a time to add some AI into K-in.
Can you read that again?
Sure. So can you make a quick split for the same size shape? For example, for land or plot.
So split the shape. So split the shape, is that?
Yeah.
Quick split for the same size shape. That was the exact question.
If you're talking about those shapes I had in MicroStation there, if you're talking about dividing each one in two, I have no doubt it could be done. I'm not a developer myself. I can read a bit of script and code, but I get I've got guys who do a lot better than me. But I have no doubts you could split each one of those shapes into 2, 4, 6. You just need to give it a rule and an algorithm to do as such. No, what was the question? What was the AI question there?
It was maybe it is a time to add some AI into K-in.
AI in key-in?
Key-in, yes.
AI in key-in. I'm not sure what that means.
Here is the explanation. What I mean, you have a land area and you want to make same size of plots on it.
A land area, you want to make the same size plots on it.
Okay, maybe this is a question that requires a little bit more deeper diving. So
yeah, it's quite specific.
It's quite specific. So Marcin Piotrowski raised those questions. Please, Marcin, you have my email address, so please feel free to send me that email. Send me an email with the specific questions, and then we can send it to Stuart to clarify. And if it's of common interest, then we will share that with all the attendees of that session.
Just one thing on that as well. If anyone has any Python scripts that they would like us to take a look at and build as a sample.
Oh, that's a very good idea.
If you could put that on the ideas forum, the MicroStation ideas, if you do a Google search for MicroStation ideas and put that on there, maybe with a heading of Python sample, we're collecting them off there at the moment and building them up through that avenue. Okay.
So Marcin just said it's architectural side what he asked for, but he will send that to me via email. For my perspective, the most important question that I have received in the last few weeks about Python is if VBA is staying alive, or if all that stuff will be cut off and is worthless at the end. I know this is Jakub has that in his question, but I think this is worth being answered a little bit more in detail.
Yeah. Look, plenty of users have years and years worth of VBA scripts that live on their system and perform certain tasks. Some of them perform the task without anyone knowing because they're running the startup and so forth. We wouldn't want to ever disrupt that type of arrangement. As long as Windows is supporting VBA, we'll keep it within MicroStation because of the long-standing scripts that users have. Are we saying rewrite your scripts in Python? No way. If you've got them in VBA and they work and they're performing the function, keep them there. There's no point spending the time doing that. If you want to add a bit more functionality to them and you find that Python can do that, then go ahead and rewrite them. But there's no need to worry about VBA being retired from a Bentley perspective in MicroStation.
Maybe I'll just add one more question from my side. If there are regular MicroStation users that don't have a big programming experience, do you have any tips for them? How can they learn the basics? How to simply learn to use it inside MicroStation?
Yep, sure. So, other than the Bentley communities that I mentioned earlier, and probably those getting started, blogs that I mentioned, which is accessed through the Python interface under help there. The internet is a plethora of learning the syntax of Python. And of course, there's the syntax of Python's one thing, but there's also the MicroStation specific functions and classes and so forth. So it's probably a good idea to start by learning Python by one of the many free things out there. So this is just a Google search of learn Python. You can see how many come up. On the right hand side here, what this is Windows Copilot. Now, we in Bentley have access to Windows Copilot as part of our Windows subscription. So it's just a screenshot of asking the Copilot some specific questions about scripting, which it's quite good at. But at this point in time, Copilot doesn't link or hook into our knowledge base for those specific MicroStation functions. So as the big ones evolve, your OpenAI and so forth, perhaps they'll go around and have a look inside the GitHub repository there and seek some information. I had a little bit of success recently using a feature called greptile, Greptile, which were allowed to select the MicroStation GitHub repository, and it learned from there, and I was able to ask it some questions. There's another one called Cursor AI, which is proving pretty popular, so it's worth experimenting with that. And we're also working in the background by having a look at what we can do in the space for learning as well. So there's a few ways and means of probably learning from scratch, a bit of coursework in conjunction with the API documentation through the help in the document, but also a bit of co-piloting as well. Is always a good place to start.
Okay, perfect. Stuart, so thank you very much for all the answers, all the deep explanation, and thank you again to our audience for being with us and for interesting questions. I hope you can see that the Python functionalities are very useful inside MicroStation, and it's actually not hard to customize your MicroStation environment using Python. Nanette, could you please switch back to my presentation?
Sure.
Okay, at the end, I would like to invite you all to the next fireside chat that will be hosted by my colleague Yasir El Yakubi, and the topic will be public space modeling and collaboration efficiency. We'll dive into advanced visualization, rendering, solar analysis, and sustainable models. You can scan the first QR code on the slide and register for the event right now. And if you use the second QR code, you will be able to see our webinars, upcoming webinars, and also watch the recorded ones. I'll give you just one more second to scan the QR codes. Okay. Again, thank you all for staying with us till the end, and I hope to see you on the future fireside chats and webinars. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Yeah,
Thanks,
everyone.
Jakob and Stuart, for presenting. Well, very well done. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.